Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm going to be interviewing my mom about Dragon Wings by Lawrence Yep. So our profound part is on page 188 to 189. And the big idea of the profound part is racism between the Chinese and the demons. In the profound part, the text is, "Just you Chinamen," the young officer said. And on the next page it says, "But they've got to go. I'm taking them bound up if necessary." And we know this profound part demonstrates this big idea because they only make him, the Wind Rider and Moonshadow, leave the tent because he's different than the white demons. And I think that's really rude.
It sort of reminds me of the same conflicts that we've seen over the years with many different cultures, like the African Americans in the South here in the United States, the Jews and the Nazis in the Holocaust, Bosnians and the Serbs, and every culture seems to have had their own conflicts. It's an interesting part of the book to hear how they dealt with this conflict in the same way that so many of the other conflicts were dealt with, and that is the people who had the power picked on the people who were less fortunate.
And I just think it's really rude. And like Abraham Lincoln, even though he stopped slavery, he owned slaves himself, and I think that's really weird.
It's an interesting part of the book in Dragon Wings to see. Well, in your book, was there anybody that stood up for Moonshadow and for the other
Mrs.
character?
Whitlaw, she stood up for Wind Rider and Moonshadow, and the officer came into the tent, and she said, "No, they can't go," and he said, "Yes, I'm taking them, but they've got to go. I'm taking them bound up if necessary."
And it's the same sort of thing, and just using the slaves in the South, for example. In the United States, at least, slavery was abolished finally because people stood up, both African Americans themselves and also other people in the United States finally said we need to put an end to it. And it seems like in your book, the only way that someone was going to put an end to it is if someone actually stood up for Moonshadow.
It was all Moonshadow and Wind Rider, but it was all the Chinese and Golden Gate Park, because there was a big fire after the earthquake, and they were all in Golden Gate Park in tents and stuff. And I think the officer, when they collected all the Chinese or the Tang people.
Do you think that that they dealt with it properly in the book, or do you think that they were overly harsh to Moonshadow and Wind Rider?
And the rest of the Tang people. Yeah, I think they were really harsh on them.
Do you think that there were some lessons to be learned from Dragon Wings?
Yeah.
What do you think those lessons were?
I think that you shouldn't discriminate people just because they're different than you. Like, they're all human. There's nothing wrong with them, and like maybe there can be African Americans or Tang people that have really good thoughts. Like Barack Obama, even though he's African American, he's a really good president.
That's an important lesson to take from the book.
Yeah. Thanks for talking with me about Dragon Wings by Lawrence Yep.
It was fun to hear about your book.
Mm-hmm.